Hello guys, and welcome to another video. Now today we're continuing the coverage of new unique items in Path of Exile 2 with a returning PoE1 unique with a big twist, Tabula Rasa. In PoE1, this item has always been an interesting and useful unique, providing early access to a 6-link without the need to fix socket colours at the cost of losing any defensive stats or other modifiers from your body armour slot. It provides a good choice of upside versus downside, especially early on in a league or early in a character's progression. But since PoE2's gem socket system is very different to PoE1, what exactly this item actually does has had to be shifted up quite drastically for it to fit into PoE2. So where Tabula Rasa is an entry-level unique in PoE1, in PoE2 it's the complete opposite. In fact, in Path of Exile 2, Tabula Rasa appears to be a tier 0 unique. That means its rarity is alongside the likes of Astramentis and the newly added Chernobog's Pillar, to name a few. So what does Tabula Rasa do in PoE2 to earn such rarity? Well, it still provides no defences or stats of its own, but it does do something very special. Tabula Rasa has a single modifier, has 6 dual sockets. So these are dual sockets rather than gem sockets. They're not going to provide you with extra skill slots like an unset ring for example, but they will provide slots to place jewels into. You can place any rarity of basic jewel in here, but jewels that provide bonuses based on radius modifiers on the passive skill tree such as time loss jewels won't have any effect of course. So you're likely to be placing 6 well-rolled jewels with a bunch of useful modifiers in here to make up for the fact that this item itself has no defenses or other stats. And here's where things get kind of interesting. Usually I like to look at a unique item and consider its highest potential, i.e. what it can provide at its peak, and also at its lowest potential, for example with low modifier rolls and the likes. But that's where things are a bit strange with Tabula Rasa in PoE2. Because as I mentioned earlier, this appears to be a tier 0 unique item. That means that you'll either have to be incredibly lucky to find one or farm one for yourself, or you're prepared to shell out a lot of currency to get your hands on one. And that means that realistically, to actually obtain and use this item, you will very likely already have considered exactly what jewel modifiers you want, and already have those jewels in place to make use of. And therefore, I say that realistically, the worst case option for Tabula Rasa doesn't really exist, because you're simply not going to make use of this item with random 1 or 2 stat trash jewels. No, if you're using Tabula Rasa, you already have very good jewels ready to go, likely 3 or 4 stats in each and every slot, and therefore we need to consider how good this item can be with those very expensive 3 or 4 stat jewels. So, I found this character on PoE2 Ninja to use as an example. This character is using Tabula Rasa with a bunch of crafted sapphires, and all of these jewels, except for one of them, is a 4 stat jewel. So each of these jewels is providing increased energy shield, increased crit chance, increased crit damage bonus, and increased elemental damage, with the only exception being this one here, which is a 3 stat jewel. This one doesn't have the crit damage bonus. So just to be clear, these jewels are completely ridiculous. One of these 4 stat jewels right now in Trade League is going for more than Tabula itself. They're about 45 divines each. So yeah, to say this is a juiced character might be an understatement, but I do want to show the top end of this unique item. So to compile all of these stats together, this character's body armor slot is providing a total of 112% increased maximum energy shield, 68% increased crit chance, 93% increased crit damage bonus, and 83% increased elemental damage. Now that's a crazy amount of stats, but is it 300 plus divines worth of stats? Probably not. However, something important to note about Tabula Rasa is the type of stats you're able to obtain from this gear slot. Modifiers that you usually wouldn't be able to access on the body armor. For example, this character is gaining a huge amount of global increased energy shield, where usually you would be gaining a large amount of flat energy shield instead. And this changes the dynamic of how useful other stats become on your character. For example, increased energy shield from the passive skill tree is less valuable, whilst getting a huge amount of flat energy shield from your other gear slots, such as this helmet right here, is very important. However, speaking of those stats that you cannot usually obtain on body armors, there's some interesting modifiers that can roll on jewels. For example, increased skill effect duration, increased block chance, or even maximum elemental resistances. It's possible that you can use Tabula to obtain a crazy amount of one stat like skill effect duration to be able to do some interesting shenanigans with some skills. For example, the Chronomancer's Time Freeze. Now, overall, I do think that Tabula Rasa is more interesting than I thought it would be in PoE2, and there is some options there to really take advantage of gaining different modifiers from your body armor. But realistically, to get very good use out of this item, you also need some exceptionally good jewels. The difference between having really good jewels and having just okay jewels is night and day for the value that you get out of this unique. So its worth is kind of tied to the prerequisite of having those really good jewels in the first place, or at least having a good idea for which modifiers you can utilize from jewels that you usually wouldn't be able to get from a standard piece of gear in the body armor slot. And that's pretty much it. Tabula Rasa in PoE2. How are you getting on with patch 0.2, or perhaps you're playing Last Epoch's new season? Let me know by commenting below. Thanks for watching this video, and as always, stay tuned and stay safe.